If someone had told me I'd wake to a stranger breathing soft on my pillow and a wedding ring biting my finger, I would have blamed the dream. There's a kind of headache that doesn't just cleave your skull, it drags your whole spirit through a grinder. That's what I woke to. My eyes crept open, and the sunlight came at me like it held a grudge. My tongue was raw sandpaper. I groaned, shifted beneath soft, unfamiliar sheets, and went still. Someone was in the bed with me. A woman. Naked. Stunning. Absolutely real. Her golden brown hair fanned over the pillow like wild brushstrokes, chaotic, yet deliberate. Down her spine ran a tattoo, vines of ink threaded with tiny stars. Her bare back rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm. Panic moved through me in a cold wave. I sat up too quickly and the world tilted. My head spun. There was a ring on my finger, a thick silver band. My eyes shot to the bedside table, and there it was staring at me like a punchline. I wasn't ready for a marriage certificate. No. I whispered to the room. No, no, no. The woman stirred beside me and rolled over. Her eyes fluttered open, dark warm brown flecked with gold. A sleepy smile curved her lips. Good morning, wife, she drooled, her voice husky. I stammered. Who are you? She sat up and stretched, completely unapologetic about her nudity. Aria Wilde. Artist. Occasional chaos machine. You Sienna Locke. I muttered, grabbing the sheet to cover my chest. Attorney. This can't be real. She glanced at the certificate. Oh, it's real. Witnessed and stamped and everything. That Elvis impersonator was really committed. Do you not remember? I remember. Shots, I said, struggling to piece together the blurry edges of last night. My friend's bachelorette party, the private room. Someone dared me to know. No, I did not marry a complete stranger. She raised an eyebrow, amused. Well, technically I wasn't a complete stranger by the time we got to the chapel. We made out for a good 20 minutes first. I buried my face in my hands. This has to be annulled immediately. Easy, Tiger, she said with a soft laugh. I'm not trying to get half your assets. I'm sure we can undo it or make it a hilarious story in a few years. I looked over at her, exasperated, and despite everything, I couldn't ignore the way she looked sitting there in the morning light. Skin glowing, freckles sprinkled over her nose, a faint hickey on her collarbone. Did I do that? She stood up and sauntered to the bathroom, unashamed, and called over her shoulder. You were wild last night, by the way. Who knew lawyers could ride like that? My face burned. Memories came in flashes. My back against the hotel wall, her lips on mine, her fingers tugging at my dress, my mouth finding the soft wet heat between her thighs, her whispering my name like a promise. She reappeared in the doorway, a towel wrapped around her. Don't worry. You are very consensual. I closed my eyes and groaned. This is a disaster. You know what I think, she said, drying her hair with another towel. You needed to let go, and you did spectacularly, I might add. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from my assistant. Custody hearing rescheduled for Tuesday. Judge Miriam, still skeptical about your lack of domestic stability. Sorry. Call me. My throat tightened. The real world crashed back in. My niece, Ellie, the court, my sister's death, the stakes. I looked at Aria, this chaotic, stunning woman I accidentally married, and suddenly the tiniest flicker of an idea took root in my brain. No, for absolutely not, unless 2 hours later, I was on the first flight back to Pacific Harbor, wedding rings still taunting me from my finger. Aria had offered to come with me for the annulment process. Half joking, of course, but I told her it would be faster if I handled it alone. I lied. The truth was I didn't want her to see me unravel. My condo felt colder than usual when I returned. Everything was in perfect order. Minimalist furniture, clean counters, fresh orchids on the glass table. Controlled, predictable. Everything I wasn't for the last 24 hours. I showered, trying to scrub the feel of Aria off my skin. But it lingered. Her scent, her laugh, her legs wrapped around my waist. God, what the hell was wrong with me? I sat in my office and opened Ellie's case file again. Custody was a battlefield, and I had sharpened myself into a weapon over the years to win. But this was different. Judge Miriam had been firm. The child needs emotional consistency, a stable home, family structure. What she really meant was, you're a single woman with a demanding job. No partner, no softness. You're not what a 6-year-old girl needs. It didn't matter that I loved Ellie like my own. Didn't matter that I had left the corporate firm to make time for her, or that I had made her lunches every morning for 6 months. To the judge, I was too sharp, too solitary. My fingers droomed on the desk. Married, stable, partnered. A fake marriage was a felony in most cases, unless it wasn't fake, unless it was real on paper and convincing in court. And I was married legally to a woman I met 24 hours ago. I stared at the marriage certificate I tucked into my briefcase. My name, her name, Sienna Locke, Aria Wilde. The doorbell rang. I blinked, pushing thought away. It was Auntie June dropping off Ellie. Her smile softened when she saw me. She's been quiet today, she whispered, eyes full of unspoken worry. Misses her mom. Ellie patted in, teddy bear in hand. I knelt and hugged her tightly. I missed you, Munchkin. Did you get married? She asked innocently, eyeing the silver band on my hand. I stiffened. Auntie June's eyes widened. I stammered. Kind of. It was an accident. Ellie frowned. How do you accidentally marry someone? Good question, kid. That night, after Ellie fell asleep watching cartoons, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine. The city sparkled below me. My phone was in my hand before I could stop myself. I stared at Aria's number. My thumb hovered. Then I typed, I need to ask you something. And before you say no, hear me out. She responded within seconds. Ooh, sounds juicy. What's up, wifey? Can we meet? I asked her. Only if you're buying drinks. The cafe was quiet, tucked between an art gallery and a bakery. Aria walked in wearing an oversized denim jacket, paint smudges still on her hands. Her hair was tied up carelessly, and her boots clunked against the floor like she owned the place. God help me. You look tense, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. I'm about to ask you to pretend to be my wife for 3 months. So yes, I'm tense. Her eyes sparkled. Excuse me. I explained everything. Ellie, the custody case, Judge Miriam's fixation on family structure, the urgency. You want me to move in and pretend this whole thing is real? She asked, slowly blinking. Not forever. Just until the custody hearing is over. I'll draft a contract. You'll be compensated. It'll be clean, professional, no sex, no weird stuff. She leaned in, teasing. No weird stuff. But what if I want weird stuff? My mouth went dry. She laughed softly, kidding mostly. I fought not to blush. This isn't a joke. Her tone softened. I know and I get it. That little girl means the world to you, huh? She's everything. Aria sat back staring at me. Then she tilted her head. Okay, I'll do it. You will? But I have conditions. Here we go. 1, I don't cook. 2, I get to paint in the living room. 3, once a week, you give me 30 minutes in the bathtub with wine and no judgment. I stared at her, then nodded. Fine, but I also have rules. I bet you do, counselor, she said with a smirk. Any rules about not kissing me again? I swallowed. You kissed me first. She leaned across the table. Her voice dropped to a whisper, velvet and wicked. No, Sienna, you pushed me against a wall, bit my neck, and told me to shut up while I held up a hand, flustered. Okay, point made, she grinned. So, when do I move in? The contract was airtight and it covered everything. Timeline, payment, cohabitation guidelines, public behavior. I used language I usually reserved for ironclad non-disclosure agreements, adding terms like emotional boundaries, physical restraint, and exit clause in case of unexpected romantic entanglements. I handed the folder to Arya across my kitchen island, the smell of fresh coffee rising between us. She flipped through it, chewing on a chocolate croissant like it was the only part of this arrangement that mattered. God, she muttered. You lawyers really do get off on paperwork, huh? I take things seriously. She signed without reading all of it. My eye twitched. You're just going to sign like that. You're the one who wrote it, she said, leaning back against the counter. If you're going to lie to the court, at least I trust you not to screw me over. I froze at her choice of words. Her eyes glinted. Well, not legally. I busied myself organizing the files. You move in today. Wow. No foreplay at all. By noon, my condo no longer felt like mine. She arrived with two massive suitcases, 3 tote bags full of art supplies, and a guitar case with a sticker that read, "Make art, not war, unless it's sexy." Within minutes, she was barefoot on my couch, sketching something on her iPad while drinking oat milk straight from the carton. Chaos. Literal chaos. I stood in the hallway watching her make herself at home. Her back was to me, long legs tucked under her, humming softly to herself. This was a mistake. A stupid, reckless, emotionally irresponsible mistake. And yet, where should I hang my art? She called out. Nowhere. I was thinking above the fireplace. No, above your bed. Then I turned slowly. She grinned. Fine, fine. What about your niece? Does she know we're fake? She thinks I got married. I didn't correct her. She nodded solemnly. So, I'm a surprise aunt now. Cool. I've always wanted to corrupt a child. I rubbed my temples. That night, we ordered pizza because Arya burned the pasta. She insisted on watching an old indie film curled up under a blanket. She brought with stars printed all over it. I tried to focus on work at the dining table, but I could feel her presence like gravity. Her laughter, soft and genuine. The way she spoke to the cat that wandered on the balcony like it was an old friend. God, she was beautiful in this effortless, real kind of way. At midnight, I went to bed first. She knocked on my door half an hour later softly, almost hesitant, her hair a tousled mess, wearing one of my shirts like it had always been hers. Do we sleep in the same bed for appearances? She asked. My mind short-circuited. Yes, I replied too fast. She stepped inside. I switched off the lamp and slipped beneath the sheets. Her body was close, radiating warmth in the quiet space between us. I caught the faint scent of her shampoo, lavender mixed with a hint of citrus. She didn't touch me, didn't speak again, but I could feel her eyes on me through the dark. And suddenly, I was painfully aware of how long it had been since I'd let anyone close. Since I dared to want, to feel. Sienna, she murmured. Yes, if you ever want to break the rules just a little, I won't tell. I swallowed hard. Go to sleep, Arya. She sighed, a soft, amused sound that lingered in the dark. And somewhere between her breathing and the sound of rain outside, I realized my heart was pounding like I'd run a mile barefoot. The next morning, I found her painting on the balcony, wearing nothing but one of my robes. Loosely tied, brushes in her hand, skin kissed by early sunlight. She looked over her shoulder. You want coffee or a kiss? I blinked. What? She smirked. Relax, Locke. Coffee's in the kitchen. I turned to leave. And hey, she added. I paused. I'm really good at pretending, she said softly. But you make it very hard not to enjoy it. She didn't wait for my response, just dipped her brush into the palette and turned back to her canvas. I stood there a moment longer, suddenly unsure of which side of the line I was on. The one where we fake everything or the one where I start to wish it was real. Pretending to be married is easy on paper. There's structure, a checklist, appear affectionate, share a home, act like you trust each other. But reality, Reality was Arya humming off-key in the kitchen barefoot with one of my silk blouses barely buttoned. Reality was her breaking to plates in 3 days and using my fountain pens for doodling tiny birds in the margins of my contracts. And somehow reality was also me smiling more than I had in months. But tonight wasn't about smiles. Tonight was about performance. Auntie June and Judge Miriam's favorite court-assigned social worker, Mrs. Daniela, were coming for dinner to evaluate my domestic situation, which meant every single detail had to look picture perfect. Candles, matching wine glasses, a roast I started at 300 p.m. sharp. Arya waltzed in at 5:42 wearing a red wrap dress that hugged her body like sin. Her lips a dark cherry stain. My tongue dried out at the sight. "You look," I struggled. "Fake wife-worthy," she teased, twirling once. "Too much?" I forced a breath. "It's fine. You look fine," she said with a smirk, eyes drifting down the neckline of my tailored blouse in a tight-lipped lawyer, on the verge of emotional collapse kind of way. "You're not helping." "I know," she whispered as she closed the distance between us. "But we are supposed to be married, remember?" She leaned in and adjusted my necklace with infuriating slowness, her fingers grazing my skin, her breath warm against my jaw. I forgot how to breathe. Dinner started with forced smiles and fake laughter. Mrs. Daniela asked passive-aggressive questions like a seasoned detective. Arya played the charming spouse to perfection, holding my hand under the table, sharing stories about our honeymoon, and describing how I always burn the toast in the morning. I was equal parts impressed and horrified. Auntie June just raised her brow like she knew something wasn't right. That woman had radar, sharper than most lawyers I've met. Halfway through dessert, Ellie ran out from her bedroom, holding the drawing Arya gave her earlier, a watercolor of the two of them riding a unicorn through a candy sky. "I love Arya," Ellie declared. "She's the best new person ever." My throat tightened. Mrs. Daniela smiled. "It's nice to see Sienna with someone so warm. You seem very balanced together." That word again. Stable, domestic, partnered. For a terrifying moment, I almost believed it myself. After everyone left, I sank onto the couch, heels off, heart racing from the adrenaline of keeping our lie intact. Arya walked in, holding a wine bottle and 2 glasses. "To deception," she said, raising hers. I managed a tired laugh. "To survival." She flopped down next to me. The soft thud of her body against mine sent a jolt through my core. "Ellie adores you," I said before I could stop myself. "She's magic," Arya said, smiling softly. "You've done so much for her. You didn't have to. She's family." "So are you now," she said quietly. The silence between us was heavy, charged. She set down her glass and looked at me. "Sienna." I turned my head and her face was so close, her scent wrapping around me like a silk scarf. My resolve frayed. "I know we said no lines crossed," she whispered, "but I don't think I can lie beside you every night and not want more." I didn't answer. She leaned in, pausing just before our lips met. I closed the distance. The kiss was slow, intentional. No Vegas haze, no alcohol, just heat and need and the dangerous thrill of something real slipping past the cracks. Her hand slid into my hair as I pulled her onto my lap. Mouths fused, teeth grazing, moans tangled. She straddled me, the fabric of her dress gathering at her thighs. "Say stop," she breathed against my mouth. I didn't. I slipped my hands under her dress, found the heat between her legs. "No panties. You planned this," I growled. Her smile was wicked. I hoped. I kissed down her neck, tasting skin, biting where I wanted to mark. We moved to the bedroom like gravity pulled us there. Clothes scattered, breaths quickened. Her body was art. Lines I traced with tongue and teeth, curves I worked without restraint. She gasped as I slid down between her legs, her thighs trembling under my hands. "Sienna," she cried out, fingers in my hair, hips arching. I didn't stop until she broke apart under me, panting, eyes glazed. When I finally kissed her again, it wasn't calculated. It was desperate. And when she pulled me under her, whispering filth and sweetness in equal measure, I let go completely. Later, tangled in sheets, skin still flushed and heart bare, I stared at the ceiling. What did we just do? I asked. Arya, cheek against my shoulder, murmured. We broke a few rules. And with that, she fell asleep. Soft, warm, real. I lay there wide awake, wanting her again, and terrified. It was already too late to stop. The morning after should have been easy. A quiet breakfast, a mutual shrug, maybe an unspoken agreement to pretend it never happened. But I woke up tangled in sheets that smelled like her, citrus and paint and something soft I couldn't name. My thigh was draped over hers. Her hand rested on my stomach like it belonged there, and for one terrifying moment, I didn't want to move. Arya stirred beside me and blinked at me with sleepy, honest eyes. No teasing, no smirking. Hey, she said, voice rough with sleep. Hey. Silence settled between us. Not the awkward kind, the kind that meant something. And that was the problem, because last night wasn't supposed to mean anything. She didn't say much that morning, just kissed my cheek softly before disappearing into the shower. She left me a cup of coffee with a heart drawn in foam and a little note. I like waking up next to you. No pressure, just honesty. No pressure. I was already suffocating at the office. I couldn't focus. I kept thinking about the sound she made when I kissed the inside of her thigh. The way she whispered my name like a secret only she wanted to keep. And worse, I kept remembering how safe it felt afterward. Her arms, her warmth. I stared at my legal pad, blank, except for one phrase I'd unconsciously written over and over. Don't fall. I came home late, hoping she'd be asleep. She wasn't. She was curled up on the couch in a worn hoodie and shorts, sketching again. Long day? She asked, not looking up. Yes. I walked past her toward the hallway, but her voice stopped me. You've been different since last night. I turned slowly. We said no feelings. You said it. I never agreed. My jaw tightened. She stood and walked toward me slowly, carefully. Sienna, I'm not asking you for anything. I just need to know, was it just sex for you? Her voice was small, vulnerable. I hated how it cracked something inside me. I don't do this, I said. I don't feel things like this. And I sure as hell don't risk my heart for someone who makes breakfast with oat milk and wears my shirts like they own me. A pause. Arya swallowed hard. So that's what I am, a risk. I didn't answer. She let out a quiet laugh, more bitter than amused. You can argue with judges, but not with your own heart, huh? I turned away. Sienna. Good night, Arya. I went to bed alone. And for the first time since this whole mess began, I hated how cold the sheets were. The next evening, the power went out during a storm. It's typical Westory estate grid failure. I lit candles and found Arya sitting by the window watching the rain slide down the glass. Her sketchbook was on her lap, a half-finished portrait of Ellie's laugh in soft charcoal lines. You're amazing, I said before I could stop myself. She glanced over, surprised. I mean it, I added. Your art, the way you see people, except for you, she said. I still don't know how to read you. I sat beside her. You don't need to read me. Just be patient. She blinked at me. Why? She whispered. Because I'm scared. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because the dark softened things. Maybe because the truth was pressing against my chest like a wound. Arya slowly reached for my hand. I'm scared too, she said. We sat in silence as thunder rolled outside. Then I leaned in tentatively and pressed my lips to hers. This kiss wasn't hungry or hot. It was quiet, emotional, fragile, and somehow more intimate than anything we'd done the night before. She pressed her forehead against mine. Still fake, she whispered. My eyes burned. I don't know anymore. Later in the dark, we lay on the living room floor surrounded by candlelight. She was on top of me, shirtless, her skin glowing like a painting in golds and shadows. She took her time. No rush, no script, just touch, just breath. Her hands explored my body like she was trying to memorize it. And I let her. When she finally moved against me, our bodies finding rhythm, I wasn't pretending, not even a little. I came undone with her name in my mouth and her arms around me like she was afraid I'd disappear. Afterward, she curled into my side and I didn't push her away. We didn't say a word, but the silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything we were too scared to name. I woke up to the sound of Aria humming again. She was in the kitchen barefoot. One of my oversized blazers draped over her naked body like some kind of lazy rebellion. She looked radiant in the morning light, hair messy, lips swollen from kissing. One leg crossed as she poured herself coffee like we'd been doing this forever. And it scared the hell out of me because I wanted this. Wanted her. That was the problem. You're staring, she said without turning. I'm not. She looked over her shoulder. You have that look on your face again. What look? The one that says you're already trying to run away inside your head. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to the fridge and poured water like it mattered, like it gave me distance. She leaned against the counter, sipping from her mug. So, what now? She asked. We keep pretending until the court date, then pretend it didn't happen. I thought that was the agreement. And what if I don't want to pretend anymore? I froze. Aria. No, it's okay, she said quickly, tone lighter than her eyes. Forget I said anything. We had fun. It was God. It was everything. But it doesn't have to mean something to both of us. It meant something, I admitted. Just not enough. I hated the hurt in her voice. I've worked my entire life to get to this point. I'm about to win custody of Ellie. I can't afford to get distracted. She let out a slow breath and looked down. Wow. So, I'm a distraction now. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. The silence between us this time was sharp, cold. She set her mug down and walked past me, brushing my shoulder on the way to the bedroom. I didn't follow, and I hated myself for it. That week, we barely spoke. We still slept in the same bed, mostly because Ellie had started sleeping over more often, and I didn't want her asking questions. But Aria curled up on her side of the mattress, back to me, silent. I missed her voice, her teasing, her warmth. And yet, every time I opened my mouth to say something, my fear swallowed it whole. Thursday night, I came home late. The condo was quiet, too quiet. Aria wasn't in the living room. Her art supplies were gone from the floor. I walked into the bedroom and stopped cold. She was packing. Not a dramatic explosion. Not angry. Just quietly folding her clothes into a bag. What are you doing? I asked. I got an offer, she said without looking up. A residency at a gallery in East Bridge City starts next month. That's soon. Yeah. And you weren't going to tell me. She turned then. Her eyes were glassy but dry, strong. You made it pretty clear I'm just a temporary asset in this whole plan. So, I figured I'd take the next step before you cut me off. I stepped forward. Aria, you said I'm a distraction and I believed you even though it hurt. But I'm more than that, Sienna. And I deserve someone who doesn't flinch when they feel something. I'm scared, I said again, voice shaking. Of this, of you. Of how real this has become. Then be scared with me, she said, not away from me. My hands trembled. She crossed the room and touched my cheek gently. Look, she whispered. I'll stay until the custody hearing. We made a deal. I'll keep my end of it, but after that, I won't stick around just to be tolerated. Then she kissed my forehead, soft, final, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the one in control. That night, I cried in the shower. Silently, hot water masked everything. Couldn't wash away the ache in my chest. 2 days later, I found her sketchbook open on the table. She had drawn me, sleeping, smiling, kissing Ellie's cheeks, staring out the window. There were a dozen iterations of us, each one threaded with love. She'd recognized me even when I refused to look at myself. Few things are worse than running into your ex without warning. One of them is running into your ex while standing beside the woman you're fake married to, and trying not to want her every minute. I hadn't known she'd be there. Vivian, razor sharp, composed, carrying that quiet assurance of someone who knows exactly how hard they once shattered you. Aria and I were at Ellie's school fundraiser, hemmed in by pastel-painted booths and PTA moms. I wore a blue wrap dress that felt too tight in the summer heat. Aria had on jean shorts and a tank, drinking a lemonade she called corporate and tragic. Then Vivian appeared, still tall, still elegant, still the bullet I never fully dug out. "Sienna," she said, like she'd been expecting me. I went still. Aria arched a brow, sipping slow. "Vivian," I replied, cool. "Didn't know you were back. Just moved back engaged now." She lifted her left hand and flashed a diamond the size of a button. It sparkled loudly. "I see you finally married someone," she added, glancing at Aria with a perfectly practiced smile. "Didn't think you had it in you." Aria smiled sweetly. Neither did she. Then she leaned in and kissed my cheek. Slow, intimate, possessive. Vivian blinked. I stiffened, and yet I felt warm all over. "Aria," she added, sticking out her hand. "Sienna's wife." Vivian gave a tight smile. How charming. The moment was excruciating. But Aria didn't flinch. She slipped her arm through mine and said, "We should go." Sienna promised to buy me cotton candy and confess her undying love in front of the petting zoo. I let her lead me away without looking back. We found an empty hallway behind the gym. My heart was racing, not because of Vivian, but because of the fire I'd seen in Aria's eyes. "I didn't know she was back," I murmured. "You don't owe me an explanation," Aria said, arms folded. "But I want to give you one." Her gaze softened slightly. "I proposed to her once," I admitted. She said yes, then left me 2 weeks before the wedding. Aria nodded, her jaw tight. She said I was too cold, too logical, not soft enough to build a life with. "She's wrong," Aria said softly. My throat tightened. "I'm not jealous," Aria added. "Not exactly. I didn't like how she looked at you like she still owned a piece of you. She doesn't, do I?" The air thickened. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. "I don't know what this is," I whispered, "but I know that when she looked at me, all I could think about was you. Your hands, your laugh, the way you kissed me last night like it was the only thing keeping you alive." She blinked at me, lips parting. I kissed her hard, needy, like I needed to feel her to drown out everything else. She responded instantly, pushing me against the wall, her hands threading into my hair. "We shouldn't have. Not there. Not like that. But we did. And it was desperate." My leg wrapped around her hip. Her fingers slid beneath my dress, making me moan into her mouth as she touched me fast and filthy and right. Her name fell from my lips like prayer. I came undone in her arms, trembling. She held me through it, forehead against mine, whispering things I was too dazed to hear. When I finally caught my breath, she kissed me once more, gently this time. "Next time," she said, "I'm not doing it against a wall. You deserve more than fast." I wanted to tell her I didn't care, that all I wanted was her, but the words got stuck. The next morning, Ellie tugged on my sleeve while I made pancakes. "Is Aria going to stay forever?" she asked. I froze spatula midair. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "Because you smile more when she's here." My eyes stung. "She makes you less lonely," Ellie added. Later, as I watched Aria brush Ellie's hair and tell her a story about a pirate queen who rode dragons, something in me cracked. I wasn't pretending anymore. And maybe I hadn't been for a long time. The hearing was in 3 days, and for the first time in my life, winning didn't feel like the only thing that mattered. Keeping her dead. Courtrooms don't intimidate me. I've stood in front of judges with reputations sharper than knives, torn apart hostile witnesses, and dismantled ironclad cases. I know how to win. It's what I do. But today, my hands trembled, not because I was afraid of losing Ellie, but because Arya was watching. She sat behind me wearing that soft green dress that brought out her eyes, one hand resting on Ellie's tiny backpack like it was the most precious thing in the world. Judge Miriam took her seat, stern, focused, her eyes flicked between me and the file. "I've reviewed all submitted documents," she said. "Miss Locke, your history shows dedication, stability, and growth. But today, I'm not here to review paperwork. I want to hear why you think you're the best choice to raise your niece." I stood straight-backed, confident mask on, but my voice cracked just a little. "I don't just think I'm the best choice. I said I know it because I've been there for Ellie since the night my sister passed. I make her lunch. I read to her. I soothe her nightmares. I've built a home for her, a family." I paused. "My wife Arya has brought joy into both our lives. She's been a light. Ellie loves her, and so do I." Arya's eyes widened, and in that moment, I knew I meant it. The judge nodded slowly. "Thank you. This court is inclined to rule in your favor." I almost collapsed. Victory. I turned and smiled at Arya, but something flickered behind her eyes. Uncertainty. The judge stepped away to finalize paperwork. My opposing counsel approached, smirking. "Quite the performance, Locke. Even I bought the Domestic Bliss Act." "I didn't ask you to." He shrugged. "Well, it worked. Let's hope it stays together after the ink dries." Arya was behind me. I didn't notice until I turned and saw the devastation on her face. "What did you just say to him?" she asked. "I was just performance, Sienna." Her voice was quiet, cold. "It's not what you think." She stepped back like I'd slapped her. "Then tell me what it is." "We had to convince them. You know that." "No." She shook her head. "That wasn't what you said in court. You said you loved me." "I do. But it's all just strategy to you, isn't it?" She whispered. "Even me." "No, Arya. I believed you," she said, voice cracking. "God, Sienna, I let you in. I let myself hope, and you're still just treating me like a calculated asset." "That's not true." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I didn't chase her. I should have. But I stood there frozen with a signed court order in my hand and a hole in my chest that felt like it would never close. That night, I tucked Ellie into bed. She hugged her teddy bear close. "Where's Arya?" she asked. I swallowed hard. She had to go. For how long? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Because I might have broken the one thing I didn't know I needed until it was already gone. Weeks passed. The apartment was quiet again. Too clean, too organized, too hollow. Arya's mug was still in the cabinet. Her paint smudges were gone from the floor, but I still saw them in my mind. Little echoes of her presence. Her absence rang louder than any silence I'd ever known. Ellie asked less about her as the days ticked by, but I didn't stop thinking about her. Not for a single damn second. I took care of Ellie. Every morning, I tied her shoes, made pancakes the way Arya taught me, with cinnamon and a little too much vanilla. Every night, I tucked her in with a story that always ended with a brave girl finding something she never thought she'd need, love. But when Ellie fell asleep, I sat in the dark and stared at the ring still on my finger. I never took it off. I kept tabs on Arya the only way I could, quietly. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't ask for the annulment. She left like she promised, and I let her, like a coward. Until one rainy Thursday afternoon, I got a call from Mira, an old client turned friend who owned a local gallery. "You should come by," she said. "Tonight's showing is, well, let's just say it might rip your chest open." She hung up before I could ask. I stood outside the gallery for 20 minutes before I went in. Inside, the walls were white, minimalist. Champagne trays floated between guests. The crowd was hushed, reverent. Then I saw it. Painting after painting after painting me. But not courtroom me. Not the composed, iron-willed Sienna people feared. Me asleep in a pool of warm light. Me holding Ellie's hand at a crosswalk. Me laughing, head thrown back in a way I didn't even remember doing. But Arya must have seen it. Me kissing her. One canvas was simply her side of our bed. Rumpled, warm, abandoned. The title, Wife, briefly. I couldn't breathe. Mira appeared at my side. She's not here. She flew in for setup. Left yesterday. Why? She said she'd already said everything she needed to with her hands. I pressed my lips together, the words inside me burning. She's not angry, Mira added gently. She's just heartbroken. So am I whispered. Mira turned to me. Then do something about it. I left the gallery. It was raining again. But this time I didn't run from the storm. I ran into it. I found her 2 days later. It wasn't difficult. She was at a quiet coastal town where she sometimes rented a studio when she wanted to disappear. I drove for hours in silence with my fingers tight on the wheel and my heart in my throat. When I found her, she was standing outside a little bookstore cafe, drinking coffee from a chipped blue mug, sketching in the margins of a napkin. Her hair was longer, her face a little thinner, but her eyes lit up the second they met mine. Then they cooled. She turned back to her sketch. You found me. I had to, I said. I'm guessing this isn't about the annulment. I shook my head. She didn't speak. So I did. I thought winning meant getting what I wanted. I thought it meant proving I could be enough on my own. But the truth is, none of it mattered when you left. The house, the case, the victory. It all felt hollow. She looked at me again. No sarcasm. Just quiet grief. You broke me, she said, and I let you, because I believed you were worth the risk. I am, I said, or at least I want to be. I stepped closer. I love you, Arya Wilde. Not for the court, not for the story, not because I need you to prove I'm stable, but because you saw me, all of me, and you still stayed until I pushed you away. She swallowed. I don't want a fake wife anymore, I whispered. I want you. The mess, the paint on the floor, the oat milk, all of it real. Arya stared at me, eyes glistening. Then she exhaled a shaky breath. You really mean that? Yes. She looked down at the ring still on my finger. Good, she said, because I never took mine off either. And then finally, she kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tentative, and it was ours. Messy, aching, honest, and more real than anything I'd ever known. I never thought a second I do could mean more than the first. But as Arya stood beside me barefoot on the back patio of our home, with Ellie tossing flower petals into the grass, and the sun painting her in gold, I realized I'd never known anything real until now. But we didn't invite anyone. No judge, no guests. No papers to sign, just us and Ellie and the sky. The rings were already on our fingers. They never left. This time we were choosing each other, freely, sober, completely awake. Arya reached up and tucked a curl behind my ear, her thumb brushing my cheek. You're crying, she said gently. I smiled, blinking away the tears. I'm just relieved. Why? Because you still want me. I never stopped. My voice shook. Even after I pushed you away. After I lied and called you a distraction. She stepped in closer. You were never a distraction, Sienna. You were the destination. I pressed my forehead against hers, breathing her in. So she whispered, Are you going to marry me or not? We wrote our own vows with no scripts, no formalities, just truth. I spoke first. Arya, you terrified me. You blew into my life like a hurricane with no plan, no filter, no logic. And somewhere between your bad jokes and your barefoot dancing, I realized I was falling in love for the first time in my life. You made me laugh. You made me feel. And even when I tried to run, you stayed. I promise to keep choosing you every day. Even when I'm scared, especially when I'm scared. Her eyes glistened. Then it was her turn. Sienna, you were the one thing I never expected. A lawyer with too many rules and a heart too beautiful to keep hidden. You made me feel safe and wild all at once. You saw past my chaos. You kissed me like I mattered. You let me in even when it scared you. And now you're my home. I promise to never stop kissing you in the kitchen, to paint you 1,000 times, and to keep your heart safe always. Ellie let out a tiny cheer from the bench she sat on, barefoot and beaming. Now kiss, she giggled. So we did. Soft, certain, sacred. It wasn't urgent this time. It was calm, like we'd finally arrived. Later that evening, Arya lay on top of me on the living room couch, tracing hearts on my collarbone with her finger. We should tell people, she whispered. Let them know we're actually together. You mean we're not going to keep lying to the state anymore? I teased. She bit my shoulder playfully. I mean it. No hiding. I'm ready, I said. This time, no more pretending. You sure? She smirked. Even when I forget to do laundry and drink all the wine straight from the bottle. I'm sure. Even when I leave paintbrushes in the shower. I kissed her, especially then. She pulled the blanket over both of us and sighed happily against my skin. We're really married now, she murmured. We always were, I whispered. We didn't need witnesses. We didn't need a judge. Just one unexpected, impossible accident that turned into something worth everything. 6 months later, I finally understood what peace felt like. It wasn't silence. It wasn't stillness. It was Arya. Her laughter echoing through the kitchen, the scent of her paint on our bed sheets, her toothbrush beside mine, and her warmth pressed against me every night like we belonged in the same breath. We were finally real, not pretending, not surviving, just us. On Sunday mornings, Ellie made pancakes with too much syrup and a tiara on her head. Arya danced barefoot to vintage vinyl while humming off-key, and wearing nothing but my white button-down shirt. Sometimes I just stood there, coffee in hand, watching them, my chest full to the brim with something so vast and tender it scared me. Love didn't arrive with trumpets. It crept in softly and never left. That night, after Ellie drifted to sleep clutching the pillow Arya had painted with stars, we curled up together in bed, soft jazz humming from her phone. The windows were open, moonlight spilling across us in silver ribbons. She lay on her side, eyes fixed on me. Her fingers traced slow circles on my stomach, slipping just under my shirt's edge. You're staring again, I whispered. I like memorizing you, she murmured. Even after all this time, it's only been 6 months, and I'll still be looking at you like this in 60 years. My breath caught as she leaned in, kissing my collarbone gentle, unhurried, a question that already knew its answer. My hand found her hair, fingers threading through its softness. Her lips drifted lower, pausing at my breast. She looked up. You still want this? I always want you. That was all it took. She undressed me slowly, reverently, like unveiling something sacred. The shirt slipped from my shoulders. Each kiss followed the path her hands revealed my neck, my throat's hollow, the curve of my waist. I pulled her closer, our mouths meeting with the hunger we'd been holding back for days. She straddled me, her thighs warm and sure against my hips. I unbuttoned her shirt slowly, revealing the soft swell of her breasts, her flushed skin, the way her body shivered under my hands. God, you're beautiful, I breathed. So are you, she whispered, lowering herself so our chests pressed together, skin to skin, heartbeat to heartbeat. We moved together with rhythm born of deep knowing. No rush, no hesitation. Her lips found my nipple, her tongue flicking, teasing, her hands sliding lower between my legs. I gasped, hips arching as her fingers found me wet and wanting. Already, she teased, kissing my jaw. I miss you when you're right beside me, I murmured. That made her pause. And then she kissed me like she was trying to answer all the questions I never asked out loud. She moved inside me slowly, fingers curling, drawing me open until I broke apart beneath her, moaning her name into the dark. And when I pulled her down, rolled her under me, and returned every touch, every cry, every breath, she came with her hands tangled in my hair and her body shaking, whispering, "I love you, I love you, I love you." After we lay tangled in each other, my head on her chest, her hand tracing lazy lines down my spine. "I used to think love was a weakness," I said softly. "Me too," she whispered, "until I met you. I was so afraid of falling. But you did, and I'd do it again," I said 1,000 times. She smiled, eyes closed, voice sleepy. "Good, because you're stuck with me now." I pressed a kiss to her collarbone. "Forever sounds good." At sunrise, Ellie tiptoed into our room and climbed into bed with us like she always did. Arya pressed a kiss to the crown of her head. I drew an arm around them both. In that instant, sweaty, drowsy, our limbs knotted with love, I understood this was my greatest victory. Not in a courtroom, not on a document, but here, in this house, with my family. And nothing, not even fate, could take it from me.